What's up, guys? I'm Austin Allen. I'm the editor-in-chief of Poetry Genius, which is a subset of the website Rap Genius. Rap Genius is started as a song lyrics annotation platform, crowdsourced annotations for song lyrics, where where a community could form and get together to interpret song lyrics. That platform has since branched out, expanded to cover pretty much all kinds of texts. So the section that I run, Poetry Genius, covers literature, prose works, poetry, some historical works, that kind of thing.
Great, thanks. And my name is Val Guy. I'm with MobileWorks. I'm the accounts director here. Thanks so much for having us. So I want to first give us a quick overview of what we'll be talking about today, just so we have a little bit of context around what the presentation is going to look like. The actual presentation is around actually optimizing the virtual workforce to make sure that the tasks are being routed in a way that you get the right results that you're looking for. So first we'll give a little bit of an overview. Austin already introduced himself, and MobileWorks will tell you guys a little bit about what we do as well. And then we'll really talk about the framework and how a crowd should be set up. From there, we'll talk a little bit about crowd curation and what that means and the importance in curating the crowd to make sure that you have the highest quality workers for your task. Finally, we'll do a bit of a live demo so you guys can see what this means put into action. And we'll talk about results. To close up, we'll actually go through the use case that Rap Genius and MobileWorks worked through together so you guys have a sense of what this looks like in the real world. So first, I want to talk a little bit about MobileWorks and what we do. We provide high-quality, vetted virtual staffers and crowd labor solutions. We're a fully managed solution, which means that the quality control and workflow is actually managed entirely by our system. We have our own private crowd of workers from over 60 countries that participate within MobileWorks. The importance is that we work with all sorts of different organizations, from government organizations like the City of New York, Fortune 500 companies, and small businesses. Our crowd is curated, they're highly trained, and we currently break down our business. About half of our business is in expert level work, which is very high level work, and the other half is in micro tasks. Austin already talked a little bit about Rap Genius. So I want to spend a couple minutes to really ask the important question of optimizing a crowd solution. You want to optimize it, and you want to figure out how can a crowd labor force be optimized to complete complex knowledge work in an organization without you as an organization having to become an expert in crowd usage. Well, we've created a framework of 3 key points that we want to address about what this should look like. The first point being worker management, and I think it's been talked a little bit about here, but we want to kind of describe how the differences in worker management between maybe a traditional crowd service and what a managed solution might look like. In a traditional crowd service, you might have thousands or hundreds of thousands of workers that are somewhat transient. They come on the system as they wish, they can leave as they wish, and they do the work that they want to work on. As a client, this makes it difficult to really understand what the skills of this crowd looks like. You have anonymous people that it's difficult to collect data on these people, and because they're somewhat anonymous, you can't retain them, you can't work with them on a very regular basis. It's hard to understand what the skills are and retain them to have those skills transfer over to additional projects. So what we've come up with is actually a much more targeted solution where you're able to curate the crowd and really understand what sort of workers you have available to you. There's a very high level of confidence in knowing the quality of the work that you're going to get. And it actually allows you to track the progress of the workers through the system so you see what additional skills they're getting. It also allows you to actually do training with those workers with the confidence that the training from the workers is the skills are going to transfer over to additional tasks that they might be working on. It also provides a slightly higher level of data security because you have a little bit better engagement with the workers that you're working with. The second point we really want to talk about in setting up a crowd is how you're going to set up the workflow design. Workflow design is arguably one of the most important parts of actually integrating with the crowd. It's one of the items that's going to make or break the success of the project that you're working on. In a traditional model, this is normally done in-house. There's in-house staff or in-house solutions that will help you as a client try and figure out what the workflow is going to look like. This can be very expensive and oftentimes requires the addition of a crowd expert on a consulting basis to help you figure this out. Our solution is a much more managed process where you can focus more on the instructions and the results as opposed to the workflow themselves. What we actually do is use trained crowd workers to create the workflows for you. These workers actually evaluate the work as it comes in and are able to break the work down and route it to the right workers to make sure the jobs get done completely. And when the work comes back out of the system, these same workers that are experts review the work and are able to do some of that QA for you to make sure the results are looking good. This helps slow down the iteration cycle and lets you get results basically out of the box. Finally, there's the aspect of quality control. We heard yesterday a little bit, some of the companies that were talking about using crowdsourcing as an in-house solution, they actually hire analysts to check the results of the crowd as it's coming in. This sort of defeats the purpose of trying to use a crowd for something like a major task. You still have to have analysts really checking the crowd. And we've sort of come up with this crowd-managed solution where you're able to leverage the crowd. Now, leveraging the crowd, what does that actually mean? Well, by breaking down tasks into smaller pieces to be completed by workers, a larger pool of workers can actually work on the task at once. Once the results come back and you put the data together to try and get a full picture of what the project looks like, you actually leverage the experts within the crowd to do the QA. So it's not something that you have to do in-house anymore. It's something that the experts that are in the crowd already can help you do. So what does it take to be able to do all three of these items in optimizing your crowd? Well, the keyword is crowd curation. And to talk a little bit about how we do crowd curation, I'll walk you through the process that we currently have. When a project comes into the system, a crowd manager actually analyzes the project to analyze what sort of skills and requirements there might be for that project. Based on those skills and requirements, they're able to break up that project into its component parts. They then scan the database of our workers, our pre-screened individuals, to find the workers that have the right skill sets for this. Using a pretty light testing and training framework, they're able to validate that the workers actually do have the skill and are a good match for the project. And from there, it's just about routing the work to the right workers and waiting for the results to come in. So I've given you guys a sort of high-level overview of how to optimize a crowd within an implementation. What I want to do is give you guys a very good idea of what this means from a very practical perspective. So we've actually went ahead and set up a demo for you guys. We're going to let you guys, everyone in this crowd, utilize our crowd to get a task done. You'll be able to interact directly with the crowd without having to set up any workflows, just via email. So I suggest that you guys take one of these three examples and interact directly with our crowd. You're going to be doing this by sending an email to premier@mobileworks.com. I'll have it right up here. What you're going to do is think about something that's interesting to you. Maybe if you've been taking notes today, you're going to take a picture of your notes, email it to Premier, ask them to summarize the notes for you, and digitize the notes. Or maybe you're interested in writing a blog post about crowdsourcing and you want some help doing that. Ask Premier to do the research for you, or ask them to go ahead and write the blog post completely. Finally, if you guys want, you might have some questions to follow up with later tonight. We'll go ahead and ask Premier to go ahead and put together a list of all the speakers that came up here today so that you can follow up at a later basis. I encourage all you guys to try this right now. The email address is premier@mobileworks.com, All you have to do is, if you have a picture, take the picture, write the instructions in the text like a normal email, and go ahead and send it out. I'll give you guys about 30 seconds or so to do this. So as we're kind of waiting for these emails to go out, we'll talk a little bit about results, because that's what all of this is about. And the real question is, what does the optimization mean for you from a very practical perspective? What it really means is high quality results, less direct overhead for you, and it really leads to a set it and forget it sort of functionality. So you don't have to put a project in and lose any sleep about it when you're going to sleep at night. The most interesting part of the process that we talked about is that it's not task dependent. It's something that we've been able to do both use and utilize for both expert level tasks as well as micro tasks. Stuff from doing localization and translation work and semantic annotation to very simple data tagging and labeling work. So we kind of have this high level overview of how to set up a crowd, and have this very real example of how we can utilize it. But I do want to go through a bit of a use case to help make this a little bit more concrete. So I'm going to let Austin talk a little bit about Rap Genius and the problem that they had and how we worked together to solve that.
Thanks, Val. So for us, for Poetry Genius specifically, the problem was this, that Rap Genius, the size of the crowd is very large. It has a lot of juice on the song lyrics side. There's about 25 million unique visitors per month that we get. And those visitors get song lyrics up very quickly, annotate song lyrics very quickly. For Poetry Genius, which was just starting out, not only did we have a much larger range and variety of texts that we needed to put up, they were also much longer texts, right? You're talking about literary works, in some cases, whole novels and such. And also the crowd, oomph, the juice was not yet there. So we faced a kind of chicken and egg question. In order to attract people to the site to add and annotate works, we had to first have some works to add and annotate. It was, so it becomes sort of circular. So what we wanted to do was build up a little bit of a library. And so I worked with Val and MobileWorks to add about 500 public domain classic works of literature, mostly in English, but some German poetry recently. Yep. For a special thing, and also some rock lyrics, because Rock Genius is another section on our site. And so MobileWorks was ideal for this because, on the one hand, you're still getting the efficiency and flexibility of crowdsourcing, right? But we were also getting it in a much shorter time frame than we would have been able to do either through our crowd alone or through freelancers, which we were using for a few specific projects before that. So this enabled us to get within really 2 or 3 months' time a big library of literary works on the site, which our users could then come in and work on and annotate in the way that the site allows them to do. But the specificity and the flexibility was terrific, because when you're talking about a huge range of kinds of works of literature, you need people who have some familiarity with those kinds of texts. If it's a foreign language text, you obviously need people who can speak German or whatever it is. And so it worked out very well.
Excellent. So I want to, now that you understand the context of the project that we did together, I want to talk about how we actually handled this internally. So when the project got sent into the system, we first had to, a crowd manager had to first analyze the skills that were necessary. So they had to look at people that had English language skills in a very strong way, people that had maybe a literary background, and in some of the cases, people that had foreign language background as well, to be able to speak German and understand some of the German texts as well. So we kind of understood what sort of skills were desired. From there, we used our system to find the workers that we thought had the base skill level necessary to complete these tasks. And then, again, using that lightweight testing and training framework, we're able to validate these results that we received. From there, it was literally just a matter of unleashing the crowd and letting them actually go ahead and do the work and get the results back into Rap Genius. And I do want to mention the actual project was done completely on the live site. So everything that we were doing, as we were doing it, was coming up live at the same time. That's sort of the confidence in the level of quality that we had when we were doing this project. The last part I want to talk about is what does this mean for you and how would you implement this if you're either trying to implement crowdsourcing internally or through a solution that you're working with, whether it's us or somebody else. Our suggestion has to deal with having a curated crowd. It can be much more beneficial to have a better idea of who's in that crowd, what sort of skills they have, and how you can utilize those skills. You also want to be able to leverage the crowd to actually manage the crowd itself. Identify those experts and give them authority over the rest of the crowd to help you take some of that overhead out of there. And finally, you really want to understand what your requirements are and find a solution that's going to guarantee that you can meet those requirements. I'm happy to answer any questions that there might be or anything else. Yep. So the crowd that we have is fairly diverse. About half of our crowd is here from the United States, and the other half is from overseas. As a whole, we have over 60 countries, and we sort of pick and choose the workers based on the project. That's sort of the whole concept of understanding who the crowd is, making sure that it's curated, and understanding what skill levels they have within the crowd.
And how do they have the time? I mean, I guess my question is, like, who are the people that have the time to do all this kind of stuff?
I mean, it's really all over the place. I'll give you an example. One of our crowd managers has a master's degree from the University of Berkeley in education. He just doesn't happen to have a job, and he's been working with us for over a year now. Some of our workers are overseas. They might be stay-at-home parents or stay-at-home moms. We have a lot of workers that actually own their own businesses, and we know when it's not busy for them. They know when it's not busy for them, and they actually come on while they're at work, waiting for customers to walk in to actually do some of this work for us.
I had a question. How do you manage confidentiality and security of the work that is sent? For example, I send this note. I don't, how can I be sure nobody else is making a copy of that?
Right. So this is part of our internal process. Part of the concept of only having specific workers that are able to view the work is just that exactly. We don't send this out to thousands of workers. We send it to a very specific set of workers. And based on the confidentiality requirements, what we do is we'll actually have internally a rating system of the workers that we've been with and how long they've been with us and sort of the trust level that we have with them. So if there's additional sort of confidence that needs to happen, we're able to do that. Also, because we have the one layer of manager that's breaking up the crowd or breaking up the task itself, the workers that do end up seeing the task may not see the task in its full context. So they're not going to necessarily understand exactly what they're doing. They're just going to understand their piece of it. In the end, there always has to be someone that does understand the full context of the solution, and that's going to be the crowd manager. But these are the people that are very highly trusted, have been working with us for a very long time, and we know how to work with.
Thank you.